pre-election pastoral reflection. Elections belong to the people. It's their decision. If they decide to turn their backs on the fire and burn their behinds, buttocks, then they will just have to sit on their blisters. Abraham Lincoln. For every election is determined by the people who show up, says Larry J. Sabato. Alas, the time is upon us which many call the silly season, subtly suggesting that some take leave of their senses and say or do some things, or not say or do some things that cause the eyebrows of the critically conscious to be raised. Needless to say that as the masses of Bahamians register to vote, exercise that right, we pray for peace and calm throughout the length and breadth of our Commonwealth. For several months, we have seen and heard power struggles, vitriolic speech, character assassination, the usual skullduggery, and intentional disorganization of all seemingly aimed at creating a climate of confusion or ideological suspicion, to say the least. What are the reasons for this new approach to campaigning in the Bahamas is anyone's guess. However, with clarity and sobriety that are unmistakable, each registered voter must approach the sacred privilege of casting a ballot for the person of their choice. But wait, is the vote really for a person or party? Does our electoral process afford us the opportunity to vote solely for a person to represent us, or is it really for the face, persona of a party that once elected is to vote upon a bill that becomes law based on the party's bias or agenda? Within this last 5-year cycle, we have heard voices that attempted to critique their particular party, but were met with fierce resistance, totally shut down, or frustrated to the point where they left the party, and at least 2 crossed the floor. Is there no place in Bahamian parliamentary democracy for an elected member by the people to voice the concerns of the people, or to have a dissenting voice and still enjoy the security of their party, and yet be respected for their views based on their conscience? If the answer is no, then it would seem that we vote for political parties only, and thus each party must be thoroughly scrutinized. But how could such scrutiny take place when there seems to be a culture of blind loyalty in all the political parties? Some argue from the position of observation that certain areas or constituencies are never going to change their historical voting patterns. Others go as far suggesting that educational acumen, social standing, color, and geographical boundaries all determine which party people will align themselves with. Still, others go farther and say it is a deliberate move by politicians to not interrupt certain cycles, for example, poverty, lack of education, and high unemployment, in order to benefit from blind loyalty. One only need look at the voting patterns of some constituencies, no matter their name change, and the evidence will be shocking. So while there may be some justification justification to the theory of blind loyalty. Should people's lived realities provoke them to break with the norm and ask, is this going to improve my life? Or how much longer am I going to be taken for granted? Don't I deserve better? Without question, there is too much at stake in this election to give into blind loyalty or non-critical voting. Since never in our nation's history has there been so many persons vying for political positions who seem more power-struck than patriotic, more consumed with illusions of grandeur and self-aggrandizement than committed to engaging in governance that empowers the people to become owners of our country, our economy, and our destiny on the world stage in our own terms. In this election season, the word corruption has been used so many times that its shocking and unacceptable implications have become neutralized. Are we really as a nation are we really a nation where corruption is our true culture? And if so, how can we be alarmed that products of a corrupt culture are elected to the lower house of Parliament? Are we at the place where corruption is our new normal and good governance ought not to be expected or demanded? Are we becoming that diminished in our ethics or so seared in our consciences that we no longer can distinguish right from wrong or even care about what is right or wrong? Are we not correct to demand accountability from those elected to serve our interests and not theirs? Are we not justified in asking for transparency from those trusted to manage our patrimony and or to act in good faith on our behalf? Are scandals only merely 9 days tall, or do they destroy credibility and thus disqualify some from ever holding political office? Should discoveries of broken trust alter our voting patterns? Is it a figment of most of our imagination, or is there a metastasizing arrogance in those elected to serve to the point where they are annoyed when critiqued or questioned? Are we to believe that an elected official is always right, or can do as he or she pleases without consequences? Or is it a passivity twinned to an apathy of our people that allows politicians to be so seemingly disrespectful and shamelessly dishonest without genuine contrition or remorse? But wait, hasn't there been in recent years a growing disrespect for God and public disdain for the things and people consecrated as holy unto the Lord? Isn't the culture of politics married to the church in the Bahamas? For our history shows that the church allowed the political machinery to envelop her in the struggle for social change and justice. So much so that now the church is an echoing chamber of political propaganda rather than a prophetic voice, reminding politicians of their sacred trust to ensure that justice runs down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Regrettably today, the touted abiding respect for Christian values strategically placed in the preamble of our Constitution is as tokenistic and disingenuous today as it was when it was originally placed there. Politicians spout scripture thoughtlessly, invoke God's name in vain, ask for prayers conveniently, and yet disrespect the church brazenly. So much so that worship houses have become launching pads for campaigns. Preachers are handpicked to prophesy, pray, and proclaim, but godly principles are not influencing what is said and done in the upper and lower chambers of Parliament. But that ought not be surprising, since godliness and Christian charity are glaringly absent on the campaign trail. How sad it is when men and women who profess faith and are elected or appointed to Parliament refuse to speak up or against and shy away from voting based on their consciences. And this ought to be formed and influenced by Judeo-Christian principles. Even those trapped in the vortex of ignorance can appreciate this statement. Any man or woman who refuses to respect and honor God cannot and will not respect and honor those created in the image and likeness of God. When we have come to a place in our country when politicians see themselves as demigods, seek to consolidate ultimate power, declare themselves as the final authority, and take it as a joke to presume what God Almighty would do or can't do. These realities are beyond scary. They are presumptuous. They are totally out of order. Without question, this election will be a decisive moment in the evolution, in our evolution as a people. Some 175 persons feel constrained to offer themselves, promising to serve those who have elected them. Though there are many parties, it is safe to say that 3 out of many are major contenders in the bid to become the next government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. 2 of those parties have governed the Bahamas intermittently since the elections of 1992. And the third brands itself as a fresh alternative. Our parliamentary democracy does not allow us to vote for a prime minister, since the leader of the party who commands the most seats in the House of Assembly becomes the prime minister and is invited to form a government. A close look at the 3 prominent leaders reveals that their personality, charisma, giftings, competencies, and years of experience differ. As they offer themselves in this cycle, what do we see and hear? Is it right for leaders to demean another person or pull them down only to extol themselves? Is it not important to weigh the words and actions of a leader, rather than accepting everything hook, line, and sinker? Ought not a leader's words mean something? Should not a leader's words be trusted? Shouldn't a leader be unafraid when making a decision or taking an action? Shouldn't a leader be able to command the respect of those he leads and discipline those whose actions are not in the best interest of good government? Shouldn't a leader go through the baptism of fire and emerge better instead of bitter? Shouldn't a leader be able to say, I was wrong, I am sorry, I made a mistake, accept the consequences, and do what is necessary to repair trust? Shouldn't a leader deport himself in a respectable manner, mindful that many look up to him? Shouldn't a leader know that the sole purpose of detractors is to make him lose focus and credibility in the eyes of those who believe in him or her? Shouldn't integrity be a hallmark for any leader? Shouldn't every leader know that his voice is never to become so common that people stop listening? Shouldn't a leader know when to quit? Shouldn't a leader put the country above self and ego? Shouldn't a leader let history determine the strength and validity of his legacy? Our country needs leadership in the purest and most profound understanding of the word. But one can only lead when people are following. Who are we prepared to follow in this election cycle? Should we follow one who has earned the right to be called a politician? Or one who was elected to lead a defeated party, was challenged for leadership at least 2 times, was removed as leader of the official opposition in Parliament by a vote of no confidence by his parliamentary, yet was retained as leader of his party, and is now being afforded the privilege to lead his party into a general election? Or should we follow one who formed a party for reasons obscured from the masses, was passionate about the need for change, but accepted an appointment from the first female leader of the opposition in Parliament, who has no party, while saying he will advance his own party's agenda, only to resign to focus on preparations for general elections? Make no mistake, every party has its share of flaws, evils, deceit, and charlatan-like personages, and social media is being used to shine the spotlight on all. So one needs to be critical of the source and learn the biases of those posting. While it is hard not to revisit the words and actions of the governing party, the official opposition, the leader of the opposition in Parliament, and the leaders and voices for the other parties, there has to be in each voter a sense of what he or she wants for the country and which party is best positioned to bring that vision into fruition. Since the Progressive Liberal Party has been privileged to be the government for the past 5 years, does the good it has done outweigh the bad? Or does the bad eclipse the good? Has it been a good steward and upon reckoning been found trustworthy? Has it shown that it truly believes in Bahamians? Has the country been placed on a sound financial footing? Has trust in its government eroded irreparably in the light of the gaming referendum? Should its disrespect for the will of the people be forgiven and forgotten? Was it a lack of trust or other factors that led to the failed equality referendum? Has it been transparent in the way it led and did business? Has the introduction of VAT and the proceeds derived therefrom been properly accounted for and of this PLP government? Has this PLP government responded to the housing plight and relieved struggling homeowners? Has its programs through urban renewal and social services positively impacted people, or was it merely a political band-aid on serious social wounds? Has the PLP policies and strategies to arrest unabated crime yielded appreciable results? Have Bahamians been positioned to become owners of the economy? And has the PLP government moved the country away from a service economy? Now that the University of the Bahamas is a welcome reality, will it be allowed to impact public policy and bring serious structure to Bansi? Was it intentional not to pass the Freedom of Information Act? Are the reasons given so far for the sealing of documents relative to the sale of Bahamama justified? Have the family islands flourished under this government? Has the PLP government promoted and defended the values of the Bahamas, or has it caved into secular international pressure? Has the PLP government gotten the controlling shares of BTC to the extent that Bahamians have retained ownership of the fiber optic cables? Has the PLP government, in handling of crown land, protected the patrimony of our people or squandered it? Has the PLP government arrested the alarming rate of unemployment? Has the PLP government partnered with educators to interrupt the cycle of patent ignorance in our youth? Has the PLP government protected our natural resources, or gotten maximum from the use of the same, or protected the environment to ensure that its policies in this regard benefit the country in the long run? Has the FNM been an effective opposition? Has the FNM kept the feet of the governing party to the fire? Has the FNM been a strong opposition defending the rights of the people? Has the infighting crippled this party? Has the FNM positioned itself to lead this country? Has the public vilification of its leader painted him in a bad light? Are the charges of the FNM's leaders' lack of charisma, experience, and competence justified or overly exaggerated? Has the FNM's leaders' inability to control his colleagues in Parliament hurt him? The fact that he was allowed to continue leading the party, does that speak well of him? Yes. Does the FNM have realistic plans to arrest crime and adequately address the social and financial decay of the country? Is the labeling of the FNM as rebranded UDPs justified? Is it an elitist party? Is the FNM being financed by external donors? Is the strong anti-corruption policy to be taken seriously? Does the FNM have the ability to connect with the masses and break through its own blind loyalty cloud? Does it deserve another chance to or simply put, is the DNA the party to look to for change? Is there any truth in the assertion that the PLP and FNM are flip sides of the one coin? One, a worn-out product, and the other, a refurbished product. Can or should this neophyte party be trusted to lead at this crucial, critical juncture in our evolution, saying that only 2 of its candidates have ever served in an elected or appointed office in Parliament? party of the people or the party of its leader. By now, you ought to recognize that this election is serious, and a sobriety that has yet to be shown must characterize the voters. It is your vision of the Bahamas that's important, and the party you are persuaded can best facilitate that vision while guarding integrity, disciplining those in its ranks, and ensuring that we become the owners of this country and its natural resources. For those of us passionate about preserving the Christian influence and governance, we must carefully discern which party is truly committed to Judeo-Christian values and is prepared to stand up for their preservation in this country and on the world stage. The world is becoming more and more liberal and secular, and courts are being used to reverse time-tested principles and to change public opinion and policy. Therefore, it is paramount for those who profess faith to vote their consciences, if elected to Parliament, and not be swayed by the pressure to conform to party lines. No one can or should tell you who to vote for, but every Christian ought to vote as led by God. It is God alone who leads us into all truth. So, we ought to pray that the Lord will order our steps in His Word. Bahamians, there is no need for violence or any social unrest after May 10th, since we all have to live here and give an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. Let us remember to be our brothers and sisters keepers at all times and in every situation. An urgent appeal is therefore being issued to aspirants for public office, especially during these last days of campaigning. We appeal to you. Turn off the heated, hateful rhetoric. Be courteous in speech and actions. Respect people's families. Speak only truth in love. Minimize the availability of alcohol at rallies and constituency offices, and or while campaigning, urge your supporters to respect the rights of others and walk away if tensions rise. To those in charge of administrating this vital part of our unbroken democracy, please do things in decency and in order, avoiding at all costs the perception of shadiness and duplicity and or collusion in a partisan way. Rebuff the perception of intentional disorganization so that people are not disenfranchised or frustrated while exercising their right to vote. Ours is a tradition of fair play and integrity, and let this time be no exception, as only those eligible to vote ought to be allowed to vote. Keep the process simple and manage time properly by deploying adequate, authorized staff at the various polling stations. Remind the staff to leave their political biases at home and guard the sacred trust. Finally, To vote is a golden opportunity and a sacred right of every eligible person. So embrace it, for it is a part of our stewardship, and it is a part of our responsibility as citizens. For George Orwell stated, "A person that elects corrupt politicians, or people that elect corrupt politicians, are not victims, but accomplices." Therefore, may the eternal God guide us in the process of casting our votes.